Welcome back to The Explainer. Okay, let's just dive right in today. I want you to imagine the entire global economy as this massive, immensely powerful engine. It's roaring with activity, right? It's powering businesses, jobs, our daily lives, the whole shebang. But here's the thing about a machine that complex. It requires constant, incredibly careful tuning to keep running smoothly. If you just leave it alone, it might completely overheat, or it could just stall out entirely. So today, we're going to explore the actual mechanics behind keeping that engine running.
It's a kind of fascinating question when you stop to think about it. Who exactly acts as the unseen mechanic for this economic engine? Who keeps it from overheating into massive inflation or crashing into a severe recession? I mean, you go to work, you earn your paycheck, you buy your groceries. But behind the scenes, there is a central bank constantly pulling levers and turning dials that directly dictate exactly what that money in your pocket is actually worth.
So, here is our roadmap for today's explainer. 1. The ultimate economic goals. 2. The policy toolkit. 3. Fighting inflation. And 4. Beating unemployment. Let's get to it.
All right, starting with Section 1, the ultimate economic goals, the blueprint.
So at the very heart of all this is monetary policy. We know the drill. It's the government managing the money supply and credit creation. But keep in mind the ultimate aim here. They're really striving for that perfect balance of higher economic growth, stable prices, and full employment. Literally everything the central bank does comes back to this one core definition.
And honestly, it's like a giant puzzle, which is brilliantly illustrated here. Take a look at this original hand-drawn mind map from our source material. I absolutely love visuals like this because they show us that these goals, they aren't isolated at all. They're deeply, deeply intertwined. You can see right there how high employment connects back to economic growth and how price stability is totally linked up with the stability of financial markets. You really can't just tweak one area without sending ripples through the rest of the map.
Looking a bit closer at those core goals, we see a heavy emphasis on high employment and economic growth. Why? Well, because when unemployment is low, businesses are confident. They are way more likely to invest in heavy capital equipment and build new factories. And that investment directly increases the productive capacity of the entire country, which in turn drives steady economic growth. Alongside all of this, the central bank is also monitoring foreign exchange market stability, basically making sure our currency doesn't wildly fluctuate against others, which keeps international trade humming along smoothly.
But, if there's one goal that really takes center stage, it's absolutely price stability. The source material emphasizes this heavily, and for a very good reason. A rising price level, inflation, creates massive uncertainty in the economy. When prices are just constantly shifting, the basic information conveyed by the cost of goods and services is incredibly hard to interpret. It makes it practically impossible for everyday consumers, local businesses, and even the government to forecast the future and make any sort of sound financial decisions.
Now, there's a surprising, kind of hidden redistribution effect that happens when inflation hits. Our source points out that during periods of high inflation, creditors, the people who lent money out, actually lose. By the time they get paid back, the real value of that money has dropped. But debtors, the people who borrowed the money, they actually win. The real value of the debt they owe has decreased. It's this fascinating, hidden transfer of wealth triggered entirely by unstable prices.
Right, and we definitely can't forget about interest rate stability. This brings all that high-level macroeconomic theory right down to your kitchen table. Fluctuations in interest rates dictate everyday decisions. If rates are jumping all over the place, it drastically affects a consumer's willingness to commit to a 30-year mortgage to buy a house. And if consumers aren't buying, well, construction firms can't plan how many houses to build, and suddenly the whole housing sector just stalls out. Stable rates equal a confident, planning public.
Okay, so we know the goals now. We know what a perfectly running engine looks like. But here's the million-dollar question. If things go off track, how exactly does the central bank step in and actually control the flow of your money to fix it?
Which brings us to Section 2, the policy toolkit, controlling the engine. So this toolkit, it's divided into two distinct categories. On the left, we have the quantitative tools. Think of these as the hard numbers, levers that physically adjust the volume of the money supply. This includes the discount rate, open market operations, or OMO, and legal reserve requirements. On the right, we have qualitative tools. These are more about direct influence and persuasion, using tactics like moral suasion or issuing special directives to commercial banks to restrict exactly who gets a loan and why.
The central bank essentially uses these tools in one of two ways, creating this classic duality. If the engine is running too hot and inflation is spiking, they deploy a contractionary policy to cool it down. Conversely, if the engine is stalling out and we're slipping into a recession, they flip over to an expansionary policy to rev things back up, making money easier to get and encouraging spending.
Moving right along to Section 3, Fighting Inflation, Tuning the Engine.
So when inflation hits, the central bank literally wants to pull money out of the system. To do this, they hit those quantitative brakes hard. They're going to sell open market operation securities, raise the legal reserve requirements for commercial banks, increase the discount rate to make borrowing more expensive, and sell long-term bonds. Every single one of these actions is specifically designed to soak up excess cash, so there's less money chasing the same amount of goods.
Let's actually track how this works step by step, using just one of those tools, the reserve requirement. Step 1, the central bank raises the legal reserve requirement, meaning commercial banks are now forced to keep a higher minimum amount of cash locked up in their vaults. Step 2, because more cash is locked away, those banks suddenly have less money available to lend out to you and me. Step 3, with fewer loans being approved, public expenditure naturally drops. Step 4, because people are buying less, businesses are forced to drop their general prices to attract customers. And just like that, the central bank has used a rule change to physically drain money from the public and cool down inflation. It's wild.
But hey, they don't just rely on the hard math. They also use those qualitative tools we talked about. During high inflation, the central bank might lean on moral suggestion or issue special directives. They basically instruct commercial banks to voluntarily tighten their belts. They might tell them, hey, demand more collateral from borrowers, or only give loans for productive, non-speculative purposes. It's a way of turning off the tap without necessarily changing the baseline interest rates.
All right, Section 4, Beating Unemployment, Revving the Engine.
Now, to fight a recession, they basically flip the whole script. The goal now is to flood the market with cash. So they buy securities through open market operations to put cash directly in the hands of the public. They decrease the reserve requirement so banks can lend more, they lower the discount rate to make borrowing super cheap, and they buy back long-term bonds. They are literally opening every valve they have to get money flowing again. And here is that expansionary domino effect in action. Step 1. The central bank lowers the discount rate, which is the interest rate it charges commercial banks. Step 2. Because it's cheaper for banks to borrow, it becomes cheaper for the public to borrow. Step 3. Banks eagerly offer more loans to businesses and consumers. Step 4. A business takes out a cheap loan, builds a new factory, and hires 100 new workers. Spending spikes, production goes up, and jobs are created. That is exactly how a simple rate cut translates into high employment.
Now, there is a really critical nuance here from the source material that you've got to know, specifically regarding the discount rate versus open market operations. While tweaking the discount rate has this massive psychological, immediate effect on the entire financial system, the central bank actually has pretty limited control over how commercial banks will react to it. Because of this, open market operations, directly buying and selling those securities, is generally considered a much more effective, precise tool for actually managing the money supply.
So, we've seen the blueprint, we've explored the toolkit, and we've watched the central bank fight both inflation and unemployment. Which leaves me with a final thought for you to take away from today's explainer. Look at the news. Look at the prices at your local grocery store. Look at the housing market. Is your economic engine currently running smoothly? Or, based on what we just learned, is the central bank getting ready to pull a lever on your money right now? Thanks for joining me today, and I really hope this helps you decode the financial world around you just a little bit better. Catch you next time.